Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 19th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Good, Derek. We've not had much transfer news to talk about, discuss in the last couple of weeks, but I think last night's revelations kind of make up for that. So yeah, lots to get into. Rangers back in action tomorrow. So let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty to discuss, namely James Tavernier, of course, following the news last night. Before we get stuck in, though, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, MPH Boilers, the family-run business award-winning company serving all of mainland Scotland. If your boiler is on its last legs, then give these guys a call. They've got those wonderful Viessmann boilers on offer at this moment in time. The all-important link is in the description below. Right, James Tavernier then emerged last night that Trabzonspor had submitted an offer for the Rangers captain. It's not what Rangers are looking for, but reports over in Turkey say that personal terms have been agreed between Trabzonspor and Tavernier, and it's only a matter of agreeing a fee with Rangers that will see Tavernier end his 9-year stay at Ibrox and head over to Turkey, where he will reunite with John Lundstrom and Borna Barisic, turning into a bit of a Rangers feeder club at Trabzonspor. But Joshua, the news, sort of murmurings that there was going to be a move for Tavernier in the next, certainly in the coming days and weeks. Didn't expect Trabzonspor, I've got to admit. But no. What do you make of the news?
Yeah, well, obviously it's important to state that it's not done yet, and that is how complex transfers can be. The interest from in Tavernier, which has gone back beyond last summer, there's always been an expectation that Saudi might be his next move. We can obviously get into a whole conversation about him today, as we will, Derek. What we know, obviously, is that an offer has been received, and the reports specifically coming out of Turkey and the information specifically coming out of Turkey seems to be that there is a small difference in the valuation between what Rangers hold and what you're going to have to help me pronounce this.
Trabzonspor.
There we are. I should have learned after the links to Barisic and Lundstrom for about 10 months. Listen, it comes in the context of a summer, Derek, where it's a difficult situation, I think, for Rangers to manage, because they have here. Someone said to me relatively close to this situation recently that if James Tavernier wasn't the Rangers captain, and we're going to get into Dujon Sterling and the topic of right back and all these conversations today as well. But if he wasn't the Rangers captain, then it might be slightly different, because he wouldn't be associated with certain defeats. He wouldn't be seen as the kind of figurehead, the one who's had to do press conferences after and before so many Old Firm defeats. You look at his numbers over a number of seasons, and people will say, well, will Rangers be able to replace those in the short term? Who is going to be their leader on the park? There's also the other side of this, which is that you listen to Philippe Clement, and I'll read what he had to say last week in the Netherlands. He said, if there's someone coming with the right amount of money, and he's asked here specifically about Tavernier and Goldson, we will see, we will discuss. But you need to see, and then you need to replace someone with the right money. With enough money to replace him to make it better, otherwise it is of no use. It's about finding a balance. I think there's only one player that is irreplaceable at the moment, and I don't think a team will pay the money that he is worth for sure. That's Jack Butland. Everybody knows what I think about that. And that kind of spells it out publicly, privately as well, and behind closed doors. You have heard more murmurings about the fact that Rangers have acknowledged they need a new spine, that they need new additions to the leadership group within the dressing room. But Clement has also very publicly stated to look, if the money is right, there is only one player that he sees as irreplaceable. That tells you how much work he thinks the squad has to go under. Tavernier also obviously falls into that bracket. He's been here for 9 years. People have real contrasting emotions about him, because for some he's been I guess a bit of a bystander in a lot of bad teams and has continually produced big numbers. To others, that's not an excuse, and he's not won enough trophies as a Rangers captain. What we do know today is that an offer has been received. That's obviously going to accelerate now, depending on if those personal terms have been agreed as per the reports in Turkey. And it's going to be fascinating to see exactly what does happen here, Derek, because if James Tavernier is to go, that would be the biggest, I think, signifier of the change that Clermont, and not only Clermont, don't forget Niels Koppen in this situation as well, but the new kind of new core of a squad that they want to build at Rangers, and the fact that this is going to be a break from the old, which we've heard in recent seasons, we've heard in recent summers. If this was to happen, this would definitely be, I think, the biggest breaker and representation of that yet.
Yep, according to those Turkish reports, and a transfer guru over there by the name of Yagiz Sabun Kuyoglu, Tavernier has agreed a 2-year deal plus the option of a further year with Trabzonspor. There is a difference of €1 million between the Turkish club's offer and the transfer fee requested by Rangers. At this point, Rangers keeping stum. We don't know what that valuation is on James Tavernier. We'll try and find out. I see lots of comments coming in about what we should be expecting for a player that is now 32 years of age.
Derek, just on the fee though as well, it's really important to remember that he's 33 in October, and he's got 2 years left on his in his contract. Now, you've got to remember this, the context here, that if you're outside of the Old Firm bubble, if you're outside of the Scottish bubble as well, and you're a club and you're looking at James Tavernier's numbers, yes, he's 32. We obviously know that a couple other ex-Rangers players have moved to Turkey in the last number of weeks as well. But if Rangers can get the highest price possible for him now, it is also about trying to sell when it makes sense. This is something that when we think about why Rangers are in the situation that they are in now, when we speak about their squad building issues, which have been so persistent over a number of years, you'll look at the 5 players that are left out of contract this summer, you look at the 5 or 6 players that are left out of contract the summer before. It is because so often Rangers have not been aggressive in the transfer market and got money for players when they could have at the right time. You're going to get more money for Tavernier now, of course, than you will next year when he's only got 1 year left on his contract and he's about to turn 34 in October. So that's, I think, an important point of this conversation as well. He's got 2 years left in his contract. Rangers are still in a relatively strong position as the selling club, and they should be, because even if we're talking about a drop-off towards the end of last season, up until March, I think he'd had especially since Clermont came into the club. You remember that game against Ross County where he got 3 assists. Obviously against Hibs in March, he became the UK's record-breaking defensive goal scorer. Bit of a mouthful. That's important to remember as well. It's about the strength of the negotiating position, and then, as we'll come on to talk about, who is behind them, which in this case is Dujon Sterling.
Seen some comments said Rangers should be asking for about 13 million for Tavernier. What I would say is I've just had a quick check there of Trabzonspor's record signing, folks, and it's 6.9 million they paid for. They paid Spartak Moscow for Majid Waris back in the 2014-15 season. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know where we are getting that figure from, but Rangers are not getting anywhere near £13 million for James Tavernier, unless Keith Wyness is the agent, of course, and he's doing us a favour there with regards to that. But yeah, one to certainly keep an eye on. We did expect, I think the time has come, Joshua, for a changing of the guard. And as you touched on there, it's a big statement to sell your captain. I think he's not been available for pre-season. The manager did say he had a slight knock. Whether that's just sort of whether we're reading between the lines with regards to that, but we did have a feeling that something was in the offing, as you said. A lot of interest over in the Middle East. Whether the Saudi clubs will look to try and nip in, who knows? But at this moment in time, it looks like Trabzonspor will be James Tavernier's destination after leaving Rangers. It will be interesting to see him, Borna and John Lundstrom lining up for them in the coming season. That will be intriguing to say the least. But in terms of Tavernier departing, just say in talking sake, he does leave. It does leave question marks about the right back position. I think Dujon Sterling is someone you would imagine would step into the realm. Now, I spoke with Stevie yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, scratching my head, have we seen Dujon Sterling at right back yet? He was brought in as a right back, but I think he said that maybe only in the Morton game last season in the League Cup was perhaps the only time we've seen him at right back. Do you feel there is a need to go out and reinforce that position should Tav go?
Yeah, I think that was right wing back against Morton, because it's one of, and Rabbi Matonda was left wing back, so that was wasn't a memorable game. And listen, we'll get into as well. We'll talk more about Tavernier's legacy, and I guess that's more for a conversation if and when he does go weighing up the positives and negatives. Again, some people will say, how do you replace those numbers? Others will say, well, look, can you continue to persist with a captain? Even if that captaincy, as I've just discussed a little bit earlier, Derek, if you took that captain's armband away, would the criticism be as intense? But you had a really poor last couple of months of the season. You do need to sell at certain points. No player can stay at a club for forever. The right back rules change, so all conversations to be had as well. Dujon Sterling, my understanding that Rangers view his best position as right back, and that there's an understanding that, look, to get the best out of him, he needs to play in one settled position. If you just take Old Firm games alone, last season he started Dujon Sterling. He played in Old Firm games at left back, centre back, centre midfield, right midfield. I don't think he played it on the left of midfield. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. The only position he really didn't play was the one he was brought in to play, which was right back. And if you go all the way back to when Sterling came to the club, and this is going back obviously to even before this time last summer, he came to the club at 23 years old, and at that time, obviously, he wasn't playing in different positions in Michael Beale's system. It was only right back. He hadn't played much at all before Clement came into the club, and part of him playing in different positions was obviously enforced by the fact that there was really bad injuries, and it was when Jose Cifuentes got sent off against Dundee that we first saw Dujon Sterling in the middle of the pitch, but also because Clement wanted to get him into the team and wanted to get him in somewhere, and said to him that he effectively couldn't believe he hadn't been playing. But Dujon Sterling didn't come in to play right back and sit on the bench for 2 years. There was always that plan in the background that he would be the successor in that position. Now it's a different manager and a different system. I actually think that the fullback role that Clement deploys, and we'll see how that changes this season, Derek, but I think that would suit Dujon Sterling better than the kind of high and wide crossing fullback. We've not got a big sample size of it, but he's not going to have as good a final ball as James Tavernier. But if he's a fullback who, listen, he is a better one-on-one defender, I don't think you can deny that, and it's not controversial to say that. If he plays inside the pitch a little bit more, we know he's capable of moving in field. But I also don't think that the highest ceiling on him as a player is as a number 6 at the base of midfield, who, if Rangers are playing Motherwell or Dundee United at home and they have to try and open up a defence, I don't think that is his strength. You want to utilise his energy, you want him to be able to get up and down the pitch, and you want to utilise his one-on-one defending as well. So that ties into this conversation because, as I say, I believe that is where Rangers see Dujon Sterling's best position as being. And it's ironic that we're having this conversation and he impressed so much last season, but he hasn't actually played there at all. Now, I guess some of the comments back to this just in general will be, well, what about his fitness? You know, we saw the issues with a lot of players going down with hamstring issues last season. Dujon Sterling wasn't always readily available. But again, I believe that as we tie this into the whole conversation about pre-season and injuries and changes to the medical department, that the Rangers don't think there is a inherent issue there. It is someone like Ridvan Yilmaz is another example, that they think that with a full pre-season behind them, with consistency in the training and game style that doesn't change mid-season to a completely other type of football, effectively type of running that type of football demands, that he can be available for a good chunk of the season. So again, it's going to be intriguing to see what happens there. But if and when James Tavernier is to go, I think Rangers have a ready-made replacement to go in there right away. The question then comes into who plays behind them. Would that be Adam Devine? Would he be the direct backup? If not, are Rangers going to look to go and get someone else for that position?
Yeah, will be intriguing. Those that are saying that Rangers were linked with a number of right backs this summer. For those saying Neil Walters, he signed for Luton Town, so you can forget that one after being released from Arsenal. This is a point I noticed from Connor. He said, I'm worried about Sterling's delivery and end product from right back, unless he plays inverted and we bring in a proper right winger. Fact is, Rangers, and I don't think I will see another right back that will produce the numbers that Tavernier produced in my lifetime. I think Connor Goldson said it after the League Cup final win. Sort of, you won't appreciate him until he's gone. I get his point with regards to that in terms of numbers offensively. It was ridiculous, really. I mean, he's the highest scoring defender in British history, which is just bewildering stuff. But we'll just need to move away from that sort of over-reliance on Tavernier. He's been a revelation for me over his time at the club. He's been part of some really poor Rangers sides. And of course, he carries a can for much of it because he has the armband on his arm. But in terms of the numbers, I think we're going to see maybe a deviation from the over-reliance on one guy to often pull Rangers out of a hole, Joshua, and this sort of just sort of deviate slightly and give other players more responsibility, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, Connor makes a good point, and I think that if we were having this conversation and it was last summer when Michael Beale was in charge, then you would start to think, okay, do they have the players for that for that system? Because I don't think Sterling's quality is as a kind of high, wide and crossing fullback. Tavernier's obviously his role changed under Clement, and I agree with Connor that I think if you look at one area of the squad, the Rangers really still need quality and depth, and there's a few, but one of them is the right wing. And listen, I think that the initial reaction to this, Derek, will be somewhat clouded. The Tavernier news will be somewhat clouded, and again, important to stress this, by the fact that people want change. People know now on the back of Clement's comments that change has to come by people going out the door as well, and that's an important point to remember. So that therefore the reaction, I think, will be a little bit more extreme. And there's a lot of frustration, understandably, about how last season finished, because Rangers, let's not forget, they'd got themselves into a fantastic position, won 18 of Clement's first 20 games in charge, drawn at Aberdeen, losing the Old Firm away at Parkhead. They were top of the table heading into the final couple of months. And as far as a lot of people are concerned, players who had dropped the ball before did that again in the context of the last season. Now, again, there'll be a lot of differences of opinion. Is Tavernier the exception there, or is he just another one of those players who hasn't won enough trophies, who's flunked at big moments? I think that's he more for me in this conversation. If you think back to Derek, the game, remember the game in COVID when St Johnstone beat Rangers in penalties, and it was Tavernier who got that late header before the. If you think of the League Cup final,
that game was.
Yeah, if you think of the League Cup final, like the Scottish Cup semi-final, against Celtic last season, I remember Tavernier hitting the post when Rangers just had nothing, as you say, up top, and there was such a reliance on, if anyone's going to provide the moment, it's going to be him. You think back to the League Cup final against Aberdeen, when again you looked at that Rangers team and you thought, who is going to provide the moment? Who is going to be able to perform under pressure? So I'm coming at this from an angle of someone who's a huge fan of, has always been a huge fan of James Tavernier. For me, my age, someone growing up watching Rangers, it's weird to think of a Rangers team without him. And I think often he has really carried Rangers teams forward. The reality is as well, he's played for the club in a time where there's not been a lot of success and there's not been a lot of quality players around him in a lot of different situations and circumstances. Also, the captain's armband is heavy, and you carry, I guess, the weight of others and not just yourself, quite literally. So then you are associated with defeats. You are associated with the one who comes out and speaks about them after. And he's also had bad moments as well, not least the last couple of months of last season. But to go back to Connor's original point, I do think that is a really important point to stress. Tavernier's numbers are really difficult to replace. However, the system that's often got him into the box more. And yes, we saw that under Clement, and yes, we saw him adapting. But it is different to the last few seasons when he was always the kind of Rangers' highest player on the right-hand side. And I do think that Dujon Sterling would suit the type of role of trying to move into midfield. And we know his one-on-one defensive capabilities. I'll put it back to you just about Sterling in particular, Derek. But, I mean, we were speaking off air just before. And again, this is a conversation that will maybe flow more when and if Tavernier does officially go. It is strange to think of a Rangers team without him, though, isn't it? And you know, but equally, when there's been so much noise about him, it would be strange to see him leading Rangers out at Tynecastle in 3 weeks' time for the start of the Premiership season, wouldn't it? Yeah,
it will be, and for a lot of young folk as well, they'll sort of latch on to cult heroes at Rangers, and I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. A lot of young kids will admire and look up to James Tavernier. And I'm sure they'll be gutted at the prospect of him potentially leaving. He's someone that, certainly when he signed that deal, you're thinking, okay, he'll take in a testimonial. He'll probably likely finish his career at the club. But football can change ever so quickly. And I think the time is right after the way the season ended last season. I think now is a time for a clean slate and just, as I mentioned earlier, a changing of the guard. But that's not to discredit what he's achieved at the club. He should have won more silverware, it's fair to say. But as I touched on earlier on, he was part of some really, really mediocre Rangers sides, and his numbers again were sensational. He could have left Rangers a Europa League winner and what have you. I think everyone will remember fondly that run to Seville, which he played a major role in, and of course winning 55 and the 2 cups as well. So I'm sure he will be fondly remembered. Even though I think everyone, pretty much most people would be in agreement that Rangers need a change, especially with regards to the leadership issue. It will be interesting, incidentally, who will take the armband. I know that in the pre-season so far, Golson and Sousa have had the armband. I mean, the future of Connor Golson is up in the air as well. Wonder if, as we touched on in the previous show a few weeks ago, whether Jack Butland might be the ideal candidate to take over that leadership role, but certainly one to keep an eye on, that's for sure. Lots of comments coming in off the back of it, as expected. Brian with a point here saying, who would you like to see brought in for right back with Sterling? Well, we've touched on it there, Joshua. Adam Devine is still in the building. Who knows what's going to happen with him? He'll probably see it as an opportunity just to move up the ladder somewhat and challenge for that right back berth. The fact is, we haven't really seen him enough to make an assessment on him. The manager will see him. He did come on in that game against Ajax last weekend. Whether he features against Man United, who knows? I have seen on social media some folks suggesting Rangers should go and get Nathan Patterson back on loan. He is injured, of course, at this moment in time. But is there anyone that stands out? Do you think Rangers, is it an area you'd like to see Rangers strengthen just now? As you touched on there, Sterling has had his injury troubles to seek. But for me, there's other areas of the pitch, if Tav is to go, that Rangers need to strengthen more so than right back at this moment in time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you also look at pre-season, the game that Dujon Sterling wasn't involved in, as his minutes were being kind of managed and getting back up to speed. Leon King played there and Leon Balogun played there as well. So it's not as if Rangers don't have cover. Adam Devine is he 20 or 21? He's definitely at least 20.
21, I believe. 21.
It's not, you look at the fact that Chefty is your backup left back at 20, and obviously Robbie Fraser within the conversation at 21. I don't think it's a conversation about age for Adam Devine, but just quality. And you're right, we've not seen that much of him. I think what we have seen in a Rangers shirt has been good, and he's someone that Rangers have had hopes for in the past. That's why he's still here. That's why he's been handed different contracts. If you look at where the squad needs additions at the moment, again, presuming that Sterling is ready to play a good number of games at the start of next season, and the fact you would have Devine as a more conventional right back as backup, but also Leon Balogun and Leon King. And let's not forget that if Leon King is to stay at Rangers this season, his minutes are going to have to come somewhere. I don't think they're going to come in the centre of defence. So that right back role has tended to be where Clement has utilised him, albeit not that frequently so far. For me, you've got other areas of the squad, the centre of midfield, but the front four in particular. What happens in the number 10 position, and like this conversation about Tavernier, does it take outgoings to trigger incomings? The right wing, I still think Rangers need real quality and option on the right wing, because at the moment they only have effectively one out-and-out player there, I'd say, in Ross McCausland. And obviously, again, the conversation about the striker. Rangers want another striker if Cyril Dessers is to go. But like the Sam Lammers conversation, as we've discussed over the course of the past week, Derek, it depends on when they do go and when that interest becomes concrete and an offer that suits the club and the player. But I think, I don't know about you, I think they'd have enough cover at right back at the moment to not only see them through, but also probably give them a few options in there as well.
Yeah, it's not a pressing area for me that Rangers need to address before the season begins, although he will leave a void, I'm sure of that. Another point, I've seen rumours doing the rounds and lots of comments coming in on Rangers' new recruit, the Hamza Egeman, of course, joined the club a fortnight ago. Please know John and many saying, what's the story with Egeman, guys? Rumours that he's out injured. I've seen people saying he's out for 4 months. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. Now, the manager did speak about Hamza Egeman at their Dutch training camp last week. He says On Egeman, he says he'll not be ready to start. He's never trained or played physically at this level. He comes out of a holiday too, so we need to build him up. We have other players like Connor Barron and Jefty who can get there faster. So he wasn't part of the Dutch training camp, of course. It was when I was speaking to the Moroccan lads when he did sign, there was a feeling he would be available to be selected for the game tomorrow against Manchester United. But until we hear from the manager about him, and I'm sure you'll see tomorrow, Joshua, when the team lines are distributed, we can't get an accurate assessment on where Hamza Egeman is at this moment in time. Let's hope he's not injured.
Yeah, I believe the plan was always for him to go on holiday. There was also the conversation about will he go away with his international team, and that kind of bubbled on in the background for a bit, didn't it? But yeah, with Egeman, and Clement really set the stall out early, didn't he, with expectations. He's someone who I believe there's a lot of excitement about naturally, and you see that on the outside as well. But he's played in a much weaker league that I think is probably quite difficult to scale. How he'll then fare in Scottish football, and it's going to take him time. We saw Danilo back on the pitch last weekend against Ajax. Presume he'll be involved tomorrow as well against Manchester United. But there's a question about not only how long it takes him to get up to speed fitness-wise, but also, as he discussed in that interview with Chris, the fact that he's still getting used to, I guess, contact sport again and playing after two really horrendous injuries that were suffered as a result of contact last season. That means that your number 9, your out-and-out number 9 at the moment still is Cyril Dessers. Then if Rangers are able to get good money for him and get someone else in, how quickly does that new striker adapt before the start of the league season? So there's real questions to be answered up top for Rangers, because if you look at their strongest front four at the moment, is that strong enough to take you into the Champions League? No, I don't think so.
No, Dessers is leading the line as it stands.
Yeah, and listen, he finished the season better than he started it. We've spoken about him at length. His numbers were pretty good over the course, but he is not who I think Rangers would have as their out-and-out first choice number 9 going into next season if they had the option to do so. And again, Derek, if you're to look at that front four, if you're to look at the Rangers team just now, it's still there's still quality, as Clement said, I think in one of his interviews out in the Netherlands as well. You still need quality to make the Champions League, because I don't think there's enough quality in that front four. You're relying on Oscar Cortez, who hasn't played European football for Lens. He only played only made a few appearances for Lens, didn't he? He's 20. Yeah. He's coming out of injury. His minutes are being managed. The number 10 position, Todd Cantwell's future is unclear. Tom Lawrence is not someone who Rangers have been able to rely on fitness-wise for 2 seasons. I think on the right, Ross McCausland did well when he came in, but it's important to remember that in an ideal world, I think he'd be competing with a more experienced player on that right wing who gives you a different option, maybe someone who's left-footed, someone who you can rely on for numbers. Because again, at the moment, going into those Champions League qualifiers, going into the start of the season, I just don't think the Rangers have enough quality in their attacking areas as of yet. They really need to invest in that position, but it's probably going to take outgoings before those incomings can happen.
Yep, just a few points just on Tav. I love this. Empire says, keep Tav and play him up top. You love that. You love that suggestion, didn't you, Josh? Yeah. that solves everything. I'm well on board with that suggestion. Gutted, we never really seen it, but there you go. Maybe Trabzonspor will play him as an out-and-out striker. Kenneth Rutherford says, is there not a press conference today? No, it's a friendly tomorrow. We will hear from the manager at Murrayfield tomorrow, and we should get an update on a number of issues. Nico Raskin is another one. We're looking to find out the extent of his injury. Did not look good when he left the game last week in a moon boot. So we'll get an update on those 2 players. If Egeman, of course, isn't part of the squad tomorrow. Looking forward to the game, Joshua. It's a bit of a glamour friendly against Man United. They'll be bringing a few big hitters up to the game as well. And what we're expecting, just want to see, as I said to Stevie yesterday, just sort of a build on the game last weekend. Again, that's against Ajax. You want to see players just getting a little bit sharper. I think Jack Butland never really covered himself in glory last weekend, but hopefully he's getting that out of his system. What are we expecting tomorrow?
Well, I didn't know it was a 4:00 kickoff until I checked this morning, so that's one bit of bad news. But yeah, listen, I think we'll get into this at some point next week. But key question that Clement will be asked or his team will have to answer throughout pre-season is what style of player they build in and what are they doing, what's different to last season, because ultimately for all the conversation about transfers and players, it means that we're not really talking about what is equally as important, which is how are they going to win, what are they going to do different to last season, what are their how has he utilised the full pre-season to try and implement some ideas? And tomorrow will be a bit of a tough test, I think, in relation to that. We saw last season, Derek, the negatives of pre-season and how that can carry in, or as it turned out, be a bit of an indicator for the start of the season. Rangers need to just, with the players that they have at the moment, try and build some momentum on the park. They've obviously got a couple of friendlies, Birmingham and then Union Berlin. And next week, you'll be the Birmingham game, which will be a little, maybe Rangers will see a bit more of the ball than they will tomorrow against Man United. I'm not sure how many players they will actually bring up, first team players. Expect a few at least.
Yeah, they played Rosenborg last weekend, and like I said, Johnny Evans, Marcus Rashford, Casemiro was playing, the boy Hannibal. I think. Did
Johnny Evans sign? Did Johnny Evans sign again for United? Did he? Wow.
Yeah. And they've got. I've contacted when I spoke to Yaz in my United podcast. He says that Harry Maguire might get some minutes as well tomorrow. Yeah. So there will be a few of them. Obviously, the likes of Kobe Mainoo and the boys that were at the Euros won't feature because they're earning a well-deserved holiday before coming back to join the squad. But it should be an intriguing game tomorrow. Looking forward to it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, folks, if you're heading along. Just a heads up as well, on Monday is the Champions League draw, so we will find out who Rangers will have to get past to make it to the revamped Champions League group stage. Teams that they could face, Union Saint-Gilloise, FC20, the winners of Lugano or Fenerbahce, and the winners of Dynamo Kiev and Partizan Belgrade. So certainly one to keep an eye on Monday. Joshua is at the game tomorrow for us, so we'll have the usual coverage from Murrayfield. And plenty of Rangers news. If there's anything breaking, folks, keep your eyes peeled on the social media channels, the website, and the YouTube channel as well for all the latest coming out of Ibrox. And just before I forget, we've got that WhatsApp group. If you haven't joined yet, then click the link in the description below this video, folks, and stick it in your browser and join us on WhatsApp. All the breaking news on there. You can get up to date with all the latest Rangers goings on. Right. Thank you to Joshua and each and every one of you for tuning in to the show this morning. Enjoy your weekend. Bye for now.